From VOA Learning English, this is the Technology Report in Special English. Every year, IBM chooses 5 new technologies that the company believes will change the world within the next 5 years. The list is called 5 in 5. IBM says it considers its own research and the new directions of society and business when identifying the technologies. This year, the list describes devices that will extend our 5 senses. Imagine looking for clothes online and touching your computer or smartphone to feel the cloth. IBM's Vice President of Innovation, Bernie Meyerson, says this technology could be available in the next 5 years. Touch is just one of the senses that technology will help to extend. IBM says smart machines will soon be able to listen to the environment and give us information about the sounds they hear. For example, Bernie Meyerson says an advanced speech recognition system will tell new parents why their baby is crying. Smart machines will also help identify medical conditions. If you sneeze on your computer or cell phone, the device will study the molecules that came out of your mouth. It will then tell you whether you need to see a doctor. Another prediction is that computers will be better able to not just look at images, but understand what they show and act on that information. Bernie Meyerson says IBM scientists are also developing a computer system that can examine and combine molecules to create the most popular flavors and smells. Mark Maloof is a computer scientist at Georgetown University. He says it will be exciting to see what young people will do with the mobile technology, networking, and computing power of tomorrow. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Presutti. From VOA Learning English, this is the Technology Report in Special English. China has new rules that require people to use their real names when registering for Internet services. The rules also require Internet companies operating in China to remove material said to be objectionable. Chinese lawmakers approved the measures on December 28th at the end of a 5-day meeting of the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress. The new rules say network service providers must strengthen management of information released by users. The providers have been ordered to stop the spread of banned information and to deal with the problem. The Xinhua news agency says those steps include removing the information from the Internet and reporting it to the government. Chinese officials say the rules are aimed at protecting the personal information and stopping abuses like junk email. But critics say real name registration will discourage individuals from reporting corruption and official abuses because they are afraid of possible action against them. The new Internet regulations go into effect as the Chinese government campaigns against virtual private networks, or VPNs. Some reports say the government is increasing its effort to block VPNs. Duncan Clark is an advisor to Stanford University's Graduate School of Business. He says there is often an increase in internet censorship during sensitive events, like the recent 18th Communist Party Congress, which named China's new leaders. He says these periods are normally followed by reduced enforcement. But this time, he says, it is unclear if that will be the case with the new leadership. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Presutti.
From VOA Learning English, we welcome you to news about technology. Have you ever had an RSS news feed sent to your mobile phone or computer? If so, you have Aaron Swartz to thank. He helped develop that internet publishing technology when he was 14 years old. He also helped develop what came to be known as the social news website Reddit. But sadly, the 26-year-old internet activist was found dead in his apartment in Brooklyn, New York on January 11th. His death was called a suicide. Aaron Swartz believed that information is knowledge. He believed the internet should be used to make that knowledge available to everyone. This belief is what eventually got him in trouble with the law. Aaron Swartz was to face a federal trial in April. He was accused of using computers at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology to download millions of academic documents from JSTOR. He could have faced 35 years in prison and as much as $1 million in fines. Some people have called the charges extreme. Renee Hutchins is a law professor at the University of Maryland. She said it is unclear if government lawyers had a solid criminal case against Aaron Swartz. She said he was basically accused of violating a user agreement with JSTOR, which charges fees to use its huge collection of research publications. Renee Hutchins says Aaron Swartz had legal accounts with JSTOR and with MIT through Harvard University. A court of appeals ruled that his actions violated user agreements and could be considered criminal. But a recent ruling by the Ninth Circuit Court disputed the idea that federal criminal law is meant for that purpose. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Technology Report in Special English. Once again, consumer electronics topped the list of the most wanted gifts during the holiday season. Steve Koenig is with the Consumer Electronics Association. He says the group's latest research suggests that Americans increased their spending on technology products this year. Tablet computers were one of the best-selling products. Brian Tong is senior editor of CNET.com. The website reports on technology news and examines the latest electronic products. He says the Apple iPad Mini has been one of the most popular tablets. Prices for it start at $329, One of Apple's biggest competitors is the Google Nexus 7. Its prices start at $199. Brian Tong says the Nexus 7 has more powerful hardware than the iPad mini, and it uses Google Maps. But there is one reason why people may like the Apple product more than the Nexus 7. The iPad still has the largest group of high-quality apps. Elman Chacon is with the electronics store Best Buy. He says smart cameras are also popular. They connect to the internet through Wi-Fi. This makes it easy for users to email or upload photographs directly from the camera. Streaming media boxes also connect to the internet. With the growing popularity of internet shopping, many consumers will visit a store first to look at a product and then go online to find it at a lower price. Many stores understand that. So, to keep customers, some stores offer to match lower prices that their customers find in other places within 30 days. For VOA Learning English, I'm Laurel Bowman. From VOA Learning English, we bring you news about technology in special English. The World Bank estimates there are about 650 million mobile phone users in African countries south of the Sahara Desert. That is greater than the number of users in the United States and the European Union. Samia Melham works for the World Bank to increase information technologies in Africa. She says mobile phones are Africa's fastest growing technology. She says more Africans have access to the internet than to clean water or sanitation. She says mobile technology has brought about huge changes in how people live. CNN television recently named 7 ways life has been revolutionized by mobile phones. They include political activism, education, entertainment, disaster management, agriculture, and health. Banking is another industry that has been transformed by mobile phones. Reports say at least half of the adults in Gabon, Kenya, and Sudan use mobile money. Renee Mendy sells goods in the streets of Dakar, Senegal. But he never had enough money to open a bank account. Now, he uses a mobile phone banking service called Orange Money. With his telephone, he can add or take out as little as $1 from his account. He can make payments and send money to family members who live far away. Orange Money says it serves 4 million customers in 10 countries. The World Bank's Samia Melham notes that the French company is facing competition from other mobile banking services. That is not a surprise. The cost of sending a payment by phone is far lower than with traditional transfer agents like Western Union. For VOA Learning English, I'm Laurel Bowman.
This is the VOA Special English Development Report. Agricultural experts have launched a land and water management project in the Middle East. The project seeks to increase food security in dry areas. Researchers say the water availability in some of the areas has dropped well below the internationally recognized standard. Egypt, Iraq, Jordan, Lebanon, the West Bank, Syria, and Yemen are all taking part in the project. It is part of a larger 10-year effort called the Water and Livelihoods Initiative. The project is also expected to increase household income for farmers in the areas. The United States Agency for International Development provided $1 million for the Water and Livelihoods Initiative. Scott Christensen is an agricultural development advisor with USAID. He helped develop the project while working for the International Center for Agricultural Research in the dry areas. He says the countries taking part in the project were all carefully selected. He said they all share a socio-economic and cultural history. Research by the International Center for Agricultural Research in the dry areas and its partners has already proven to be successful. New irrigation methods are expected to double wheat production while using 1/3 of the water required for full irrigation. Experts say the new methods also increase crop production up to 5 times more than crops that depend on rainfall only. The International Center for Agricultural Research in the dry areas will provide technical support for the project. Officials from the International Water Management Institute and the International Food Policy Research Institute are also taking part in the effort. Each team will be joined by experts from local research institutions, universities, and government agencies. Scott Christensen said his group has good partnerships among the countries so that they can learn lessons from each other and work together effectively. He and other officials met in Amman, Jordan in February. They attended an international conference on food security and climate change in dry areas. Nearly 1/4 of the world's people live in these areas. Officials say more must be done to deal with water shortages in agriculture. If not, they say, the future of food security, economic development, and social stability in dry areas will be put at risk. And that's the VOA Special English Development Report.
This is the VOA Special English Development Report. An eye care organization in India has been honored for its efforts to treat the poor and prevent blindness. Aravind Eye Care System received the Conrad N. Hilton Humanitarian Prize. The award was presented in Redwood City, California, during a conference of the Global Philanthropy Forum. Conrad Hilton, who made his wealth in the hotel industry, established the Humanitarian Prize in 1996. Each year, the award is given to a charitable or non-governmental organization working to end human suffering. The prize includes $1.5 million. Aravind Eye Care System was recognized for its work with millions of people in India. Retired eye surgeon Govindappa Venkataswamy established the organization in 1976. He wanted to make high-quality eye care available to all, especially India's poor. He wanted to prevent needless cases of blindness. 8 out of 10 people with vision problems live in developing countries. The World Health Organization says 85% of all vision problems could be prevented or cured. That includes 75% of all blindness. An estimated 45 million people are blind, and India is home to 10 million of them. Dr. Venkataswamy established the first Aravind Eye Hospital in Madurai, in Tamil Nadu state, with only 11 beds. Today, Aravind Eye Care System is the largest eye care provider in the world. It operates 5 hospitals and more than 30 eye care centers across India. About 70% of the patients receive free care. The money comes from the 30% of patients who can pay for their services. In 1992, Aravind established what was described as Asia's first training center for the prevention of blindness. Support from the Sight First program of Lions Club International financed the Lions Aravind Institute of Community Ophthalmology. Also, the Aravind Medical Research Foundation investigates the causes and treatment of eye disease. Aravind Eye Care System has been recognized internationally. Its work has been used as a model for establishing similar programs around the world. And that's the VOA Special English Development Report. Transcripts, MP3s, and podcasts are at voaspecialenglish.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and iTunes at VOA Learning English.
This is the VOA Special English Development Report. On March 27th at 8:30 at night, all the lights were shut off at the Tokyo Tower in Japan. The Brandenburg Gate in Berlin, Germany went dark. So did the Eiffel Tower in Paris, France. The Empire State Building in New York City shut off all its lights. So did buildings in other cities around the world. The lights stayed off for 1 hour for an event called Earth Hour. The observance was organized by a conservation group, the Worldwide Fund for Nature, also known as the World Wildlife Fund. For the 4th year, people were urged to turn off their lights for 1 hour to call attention to the issue of climate change. The group says climate change is one of the greatest threats facing wildlife and nature. The first Earth Hour was held in 2007 in Sydney, Australia. Organizers said more than 2,000 businesses and 2 million people took part. Since then, Earth Hour has grown into an international event. People in more than 4,000 cities in 88 countries took part last year. Organizers said more than 100 countries and territories promised their official support this year. This was the first Earth Hour for countries including Kuwait, Qatar, Kosovo, Madagascar, Nepal, Cambodia, and Panama. At least 19 of the 50 American states took part in the 2010 Earth Hour observance. The event organizers said that one of the last states to join was Missouri. Governor Jay Nixon shut off the lights in the dome of the state Capitol building. He said, when it comes to saving energy and money, big changes start with small steps, like turning out the lights. Did you turn off your lights to observe Earth Hour? Do you think about what the organizers call your environmental footprint and try to reduce harmful effects? Is climate change a concern for you? Here is a chance to practice your English. Go to our website, voaspecialenglish.com. You can comment on this story and other programs. You can share your thoughts and read what other people are saying. You can also find transcripts, MP3s, podcasts, and caption videos. And that's the VOA Special English Development Report.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Technology Report in Special English. The United States Environmental Protection Agency says there is a problem with America's garbage. Only 7% of plastic waste in the United States is recycled each year. JBI, a new company in northern New York, says it can increase that percentage and, at the same time, reduce America's dependence on foreign oil. How? The answer may surprise you. JBI has a machine it calls the Plastic Eating Monster. Every hour, thousands of kilograms of waste milk jugs, water bottles, and grocery bags from landfills across the country are fed into the machine. John Bordnick, who runs the company, invented a new process for turning plastic into fuel by melting all these different kinds of plastics together. John Bordnick says the plastics are melted down into a black liquid. Then he uses a special chemical to turn the fluid into a vapor. This reduces the plastic to its most basic elements. These basic elements have a very high fuel value. JBI produces several thousand liters of fuel a day. It creates different grades of fuel for different industries, and it sells the fuel for up to $100 a barrel. JBI is in a good position because each barrel only costs about $10 to produce. John Bordnick believes plastics will become an important source of fuel for the United States. He says this will reduce the country's dependence on foreign oil and reduce the amount of plastic waste in its landfills. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Prasuti.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Technology Report in Special English. The shock of Superstorm Sandy exposed problems in New York and other areas hard hit by the storm. Sandy struck the northeastern United States in October, leaving hundreds of thousands of people without electricity. Officials blamed Sandy for over 100 deaths and more than $50 billion in property damage. The storm left about 8 million people without power for days. This included nearly 5 million people in New York State and New Jersey. Sandy flooded parts of New York City's subway system, and it affected other transportation. It delayed fuel trucks, resulting in long lines at gasoline stations. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo said Superstorm Sandy showed there were problems with New York's infrastructure. He said the failure of the city's public utility system is of real concern. He said the systems were built at different times and some need to be upgraded. The storm has led to calls for power companies to bury more electrical lines underground. But at least one expert says that did not help New York. Otto Lynch is with Power Line Systems in Wisconsin. He said New York lost power because power lines were underground. He said that means problems are harder to find. Otto Lynch is also a member of America's Infrastructure Committee at the American Society of Civil Engineers. The group released its last report on the nation's infrastructure in 2009. He said the report gave an average grade of D, a very low grade, to all of America's infrastructure. For VOA Learning English, I'm Mario Ritter.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Technology Report in Special English. Tokelau is a group of small islands in the South Pacific Ocean. Officials now say they have become the world's first territory totally powered by the sun. The move to solar energy is expected to save money and ease the environmental burden of depending on imported fossil fuels. New Zealand's Foreign Affairs Minister, Murray McCully, announced the Tokelau Renewable Energy Project. He said Tokelau's 3 main atolls, or islands, now have enough solar capacity to meet all of their electricity needs. He said Tokelau had been completely dependent on diesel fuel for producing electricity. That burdened the territory with heavy economic and environmental costs. Tokelau is about halfway between New Zealand and Hawaii. The self-administering territory of New Zealand has about 1,500 citizens. Each atoll received its own solar power grid system. New Zealand officials estimate the cost of the project to be about $7 million. The last of the grids was completed earlier this month. Oil imports are a big cost in some parts of the Pacific. The move to solar power could save Tokelau about $1 million a year. One project coordinator said Tokelau would now be able to spend more on social programs to help its citizens. Other South Pacific islands are attempting similar projects. The island nations of Samoa and Tuvalu are aiming to get all of their electricity from renewable sources by 2020. The Cook Islands plan to start using solar panels and wind turbines, and houses in the South Pacific groups of islands are beginning to use solar water heaters. New Zealand's Foreign Affairs Minister adds that his country will hold a Pacific Energy Summit in March next year. For VOA Learning English, I'm Laurel Bowman.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Technology Report in Special English. More than 700 business leaders, government officials, and investors gathered in Mountain View, California. They were attending the 3rd Annual Social Innovation Summit. Landmark Ventures, a financial advisory company, organized the event in December. It was a conference aimed at finding new ways to deal with some old problems, like traffic. Vehicle traffic is an issue that student entrepreneur Christian Brueggemann hopes to solve. His team, Graphmasters, received a Microsoft Imagine Cup grant of $100,000. The German team won the prize for its NuNav traffic management system. Here is how it works. Drivers using the system send their current position and destination to the system's computer servers every 30 seconds. With that information, the central system can reroute all of the cars in a way that everyone gets his individual best possible route. Christian Brueggemann says tests suggest that using such a system could save up to 20% on fuel consumption and up to 50% on time spent in traffic. A team from Uganda was also invited to the Social Innovation Summit. Team Cypher 256 has developed a mobile app to improve health care for pregnant women in Africa, where maternal and infant mortality rates are extremely high. The mobile app is called Winsenga. It measures fetal heart sounds to help establish the heart rate, age, and position of the fetus in the mother. Cypher 256 leader Aaron Tushabe says the device is similar to medical tests that are costly. Team Cypher 256 also received a Microsoft Imagine Cup grant to help continue their project. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Prasuti.
This is the VOA Special English Development Report. We talked last week about counterfeit medicines and how the problem is especially bad in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. The World Health Organization says up to 30% of the medicine sold in many developing countries is not real. It also estimates that up to 50% of the medicine sold on the internet is counterfeit. That can put people at risk even in wealthy countries that represent only a small part of the counterfeit drug market. Today, we look at what is being done to fight counterfeit drugs. Several companies are developing ways to make counterfeits easier to identify. And there are existing methods, like a machine that can quickly identify chemicals in pills to confirm if the pills are real. Other ideas include things like special tracking codes for drug packages. People could send a text message with the code and get a message back confirming that what they bought is listed in a database. Some drug makers and other companies put three-dimensional images called holograms on their products as a security device. Other anti-counterfeit efforts include the use of radio frequency identification tags. Many companies use these electronic tags to follow products through the supply chain from the manufacturer. The American Food and Drug Administration says RFID tags act like an electronic safety net to make it easier to catch counterfeits. Last July, the Food and Drug Administration advised manufacturers to add what are called physical chemical identifiers to their medicines. These are special chemicals, colorings, or tastes that counterfeiters could not easily copy. Brian Liang is with the Partnership for Safe Medicines, an organization in the United States. He says the internet is not only a place where people can get tricked into buying counterfeit drugs, it is also a place where counterfeiters can find all the materials they need to make them. He says the most important members of the counterfeit detection team are the patients themselves. He says raids on counterfeiters are often the result of information from people who bought fake medicines. Brian Liang says people who know their drugs and the effects of their drugs are the best security against fakes. And that's the VOA Special English Development Report. You can find last week's report on counterfeit drugs at voaspecialenglish.com.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Technology Report in Special English. Attacks on computer systems are a growing concern among United States lawmakers. Recently, the head of a congressional committee warned about the threat of cyber attacks from China, Iran, and other countries. Congressman Michael McCall is chairman of the Homeland Security Committee in the House of Representatives. He compared the threat from cyber attacks to the terrorist threat faced by the United States on September 11th, 2001. But he said that this time the nation knows about the threat and is taking action. Other lawmakers expressed concern about reports that China is to blame for most attacks against American computer networks. Recently, President Obama told ABC News that there has been a steady increase in the threat to cybersecurity from other nations and from criminals. He said the United States has taken part in what he called tough talk with China and other nations. China's foreign ministry has said the country is open to talks, but it said China is itself a victim of attacks and not responsible for computer crimes. In February, President Obama signed an executive order on cybersecurity. The order directs American agencies to improve information sharing on cyber threats. A Senate bill on cybersecurity last year failed to get enough votes to pass. Some business groups and privacy rights activists expressed opposition to the measure. Now, a new cybersecurity bill has been introduced in the House of Representatives. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Prasuti.
This is the VOA Special English Development Report. The lack of clean drinking water is a major problem worldwide. The World Health Organization says more than 1 billion people live in areas where renewable water resources are not available. The problem is especially serious in Asia and the Pacific. A United Nations report says water availability in that area is the second lowest in the world after Africa. Nearly 700,000 people in Asia and the Pacific lack safe drinking water. The UN report notes that the world's poorest countries are also the ones that use the most water for agriculture. Agriculture uses about 80% of the water in the Asia-Pacific area. There has also been an increase in water used for industry. China and India more than tripled their industrial water use between 1992 and 2002. The lack of clean drinking water around the world forces millions of people to drink unsafe water. This leads to an increase in diseases like diarrhea, the second leading cause of death in children under 5. Floods, droughts, pollution, and climate change have created even more problems. The Millennium Development Goals for 2015 call for a 50% decrease in the number of people without safe drinking water and basic sanitation. Scientists, governments, and aid organizations around the world are increasing their efforts to meet these goals. Still, the UN says there is much work to be done. During its yearly World Water Day observance in March, it called on the international community to work together to solve the water crisis. Researchers at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology are doing just that. The American and South Korean researchers are investigating a new technology for turning seawater into drinking water. The new technology is called ion concentration polarization. The process uses electricity to help separate electrically charged salt particles from water to make it drinkable. The researchers tested their desalination process on a computer chip the size of a postage stamp. The chip removed 99% of the salt and other harmful substances from water samples. So far, the method purifies only small amounts of water, but the researchers say it may someday be available as a personal water purification product. And that's the VOA Special English Development Report.